Today, I'm joined with Sarah from the placements team at Leeds Trinity University. Good morning, Sarah.
Morning.
Hi, and could you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Like you mentioned, my name is Sarah. I work at Leeds Trinity University and I have done for the past 14 months now. I work within the My Future team, which is essentially the employability team for all of our students. And within that My Future team, I work within the placements department. So my responsibility is to help students on my cohorts to secure a placement.
And you've said that you've been working there for 14 months. And what inspired you to want to be part of the placements team at university?
So predominantly my career is recruitment. I worked for a recruitment agency for 6 years and I absolutely loved every aspect of that role. So the business development and also helping candidates to secure a job, which is of course life-changing. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to work more with students sort of at the beginning of their career rather than candidates that are sort of maybe during the middle or to the end of their career, to help students to find professional placements so that when they do graduate, they are far more likely to go into their chosen career and are far more likely to succeed at interview because they have that experience. I myself did a professional work placement. Mine was for a year, which is slightly different to the programme that we run here. But I could definitely speak from experience and say that completing my placement was detrimental to my career and my success in recruitment and the job that I'm in now.
And who are your most active employers that help supply these kind of placements to Leeds Trinity University students? And how do you plan to sort of further expand the business relationship with them?
Okay, so we work with so many different organisations, from your large corporates such as you've got Morrison's, Jet2, HMRC, you've got some huge law firms in there. But I would probably say for myself and the cohorts that I cover, I work more closely with your SMEs. So I work with a lot of one-man bands, a lot of startup companies. I work with local radio stations. The reason why I find that those placements are, I suppose, more suitable is because when the students are working within smaller organisations, they get to do far more. They get to see the complete running of a business. They get to, have a look at different areas within certain businesses rather than just sort of marketing or law or finance. So there's so many different organisations we work with, and the way that we sort of maintain and develop those businesses is we speak to our students first and foremost, and we find out what sort of businesses they like, what sort of industries they want to go into. We do business development. It's a very, very large part of our role. So we will contact organisations and see if they want to take part in our programme. The organisations that have been working with us for years, we get them to come along to networking events. We see if they want to do some more within the university, so come in and deliver lectures to help more with employability.
I think that's really great how you sort of talk to students and see what they want and sort of implement that when you go out and find these placements for them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good thing that the university is taking into account. And what's your favourite thing about your job and what advice would you give to future university graduates?
So my favourite part of the role is actually getting in front of students. So we run events such as placement drop-in events, which are like all day. We get to see students coming in and out, speaking to them, helping them to sort of get to the next stage of securing a placement. I really enjoy coming onto campus. The Leeds Trinity University campus it's only a small one, but there's rabbits running around, and when it's a nice spring or summer day, It's a lovely place to be with all of the students, sort of mulling around and socialising. So my favourite part of the role is definitely the student interaction. Obviously, because of COVID, it's been a little bit difficult. Everything's been online, so we've not sort of had that same experience. But as we're definitely coming out of COVID and getting back on campus more, it's running these events, it's attending the lectures, presenting to the students and working with them to help them to secure professional placements.
And last year, due to the COVID restrictions giving students the only option to sort of do a remote placement, what sort of support did you put in place for those that have been struggling to find something within that time? And did you find it hard finding employers for placements during COVID?
Yeah, so when COVID first sort of hit, all placements were completely cancelled. So that was sort of 2020. So all placements that were arranged, literally, we just cancelled all of them, and the students did an alternative assessment. The year after, which is the year that I joined in 2021, we weren't in the peak of COVID, but we were sort of still in that. I think we'd just had that Christmas lockdown, and a lot of organisations were still working remotely, and they weren't, prioritising students coming on campus. It was more about getting their employees back on campus. So with the large corporate organisations, like I mentioned, we really struggled with those. Certain areas were impacted more. So the legal side, because of course you can't really work from home within a legal capacity because of all of the information, the confidentiality. It wasn't able for the organisations to send work home to students. Same within finance. It wasn't feasible for a lot of finance organisations to offer placements remotely. So what we did was we had a look at the areas where business actually benefited from COVID. Look at your small business enterprises. A lot of people during COVID decided to open their own business. They might have been thinking about it for a while, but they didn't go ahead and do it for whatever reason, and COVID made them think, now's the time I can do it. So a lot of the businesses that we contacted and worked with were Instagram businesses, social media businesses. There might have been, we had a few where they were making meals from home, personalized face masks, all these sorts of things. And we found students to work with them remotely, the same way that they were working remotely, and help to grow these businesses. So it was impacted. We did lose, some organizations, but then we also grew in other areas. And second part of your question, what did we do for the students that were unable to find a placement? So we had an alternative assessment, and the alternative assessment helped to develop the same skills that you would on a placement, so employability skills. These were run by the lecturers for each cohort with the students, and the students then had to do an assignment based on the alternative assessment, and each course had a different sort of alternative assessment that was appropriate for the course.
Yeah, and I think that's really good how you adapted that towards obviously the situation with COVID. It was a bit of a downer not being able to do a placement in person, but I feel like this year students have the opportunity to sort of get that hands-on experience. I think the remote placement in a way benefited them to take those skills and go into the other placements this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned that you work within the My Future team, and that's a great student that's used by students and both graduates at Leeds Trinity to help them secure placements, apprenticeships, jobs. Can you take me through the process of how these placements are set up for students?
Yeah, so My Future is very much like a jobs board. So it's very much like your Read or your Total Jobs. Students can go on there and they, like you said, can apply for placements. They can apply for careers, grad schemes, volunteering. And the good thing about My Future as well is that students have access to this 3 years after they graduate. So if they graduate, find a role, and then after a year, for whatever reason it falls through, they can still log on to My Future and apply to more jobs on there up to 3 years after they graduate. The way that we use it within the placements team is we work with employers to create briefs. So often we'll send them through a brief, which is just like a job description, and they'll fill it out for us. And then we essentially upload it onto My Future and advertise it. We put keywords in there so that students, when they go on to have a look, they might type in finance or they might type in law, and it should hopefully work in a way that it brings up all of those placements that will be suitable for them. We allow the students to go on and apply. They upload their CV the same way you would on a jobs board, and then we monitor it and send those CVs to the employers. We control it by making sure that the students only apply to 2 placements at any one time, and this is for 2 reasons really. One is because we don't want the students to just click and apply for anything. We want them to really have a look through all of the placements on there and choose 2 that really stand out to them. And the second is because generally when we send CVs over to a client, the student is most likely to secure the placement. It's not as competitive as going for a job. It's far easier to secure a placement. So that's why we kind of limit how many applications they can make. The employer does have access to My Future, so they can have a look. They can get notifications, so they can see when somebody's applied. They can see if I make any changes, if I update the deadline, anything like that. So the employer still does have somewhat control and can still see what we're doing from our side. But it's a very straightforward platform, and I think it's very useful for the students.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it is very useful and quite easy to access. Thanks again for your time, and that is all my questions for you.
No
So thanks
problem.
again
Thank
for
you.
speaking
Thank
to me.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.